Lesson 3. The key to unlocking the mythological unification theory is the murder of a god. It is the murder of the son of the father. And that key began with Zagreus. The dead god is the key, whether that dead god is a child or an adult. The murder of Zagreus, as we just discussed in the previous lesson, is the key. Zagreus was the son of Persephone by Zeus. Zagreus was brutally murdered as a toddler by the Titans and cannibalized. Hera may have had some involvement in the plot. Only his heart was left. Zeus made a potion with that heart and drank it, thinking he had the soul of Zagreus inside of him or in that potion, and that he could reincarnate Zagreus into another body. The reincarnation of Zagreus was Dionysus, who is also known as Osiris, and he was given a mission to help civilize the world. In the ancient classical books, we learn that Dionysus was taken by Rhea after Semele died, and he was taken to a place called Nysa. We don't know exactly where that was. It could have been in Turkey or what is modern-day Israel. She raised him and disguised him as a girl until he was old enough to defend himself. Upon reaching maturity, Dionysus was given the task of conquering the world and taming it with his mysteries of wine and the agricultural methods and ways of the Cronides. After conquering most of India and parts of Greece, Dionysus meets Ariadne on the island of Naxos after Theseus kills the Minotaur, and he takes Ariadne with him and then abandons her. Dionysus marries Ariadne, and the two set up a kingdom in Egypt and become known as Osiris and Isis. After traveling the world and establishing the Cronide cults, Dionysus Osiris is murdered in Egypt by Set, who is probably also known as Prometheus, and 72 other conspirators. Ariadne, Isis, carries on his bloodline and rules Egypt. Notice the key in the symbolism again. It began with Zagreus, who was reincarnated into Dionysus. The symbols are there. The truth of these gods is encoded in all of our mythologies and current day religions. Symbolism is the key. Please now take your time to look at the symbolisms of these ancient gods. And here is a bloodline list that I was able to determine through reading the ancient classics and other books. Again, the Titans were originally responsible for the death of Zagreus. Set would then become responsible for the death of the reincarnated Zagreus known as Dionysus Osiris. There were many people, up to 72 conspirators, responsible for the death of Dionysus, but Set is given the majority of the blame and was given the mastermind blame for the death of Dionysus. Now, Set has other names in other mythologies, including Prometheus, Loki, Agni, Ahriman, etc. From Diodorus Siculus' The Library of History, we find out that Prometheus was in ancient Egypt. I'll read some of this passage. While Osiris and his army were thus employed, the Nile, they say, at the time of the rising of Sirius, which is the season when the river is usually at flood, breaking out its banks and inundated a large section of Egypt and covered especially that part where Prometheus was governor, and since practically everything the district was destroyed. Prometheus was so grieved that he was on the point of quitting life willfully. Because its waters sweeps down so swiftly and with such violence, the river was given the name Etis. But Heracles, being ever intent upon great enterprise and eager for the reputation of a manly spirit, speedily stopped the flood at its breach and turned the river back into the former course. Consequently, certain of the Greek poets worked the incident into a myth with effect that Heracles had killed the eagle which was devouring the liver of Prometheus. We also learned that Prometheus probably had red hair and reddish tone to his skin. I'll read this. Red oxen, however, may be sacrificed because it was thought that this was the color of Typhon, who plotted against Osiris and was then punished by Isis for the death of her husband. Now Osiris and Isis changed from good minor deities into gods, but the power of Typhon weakened and crushed, but still fighting and struggling against extinction. They tried to console and mollify by certain sacrifices, but again, there are times when at certain festivals they humiliate and insult him by assailing red-headed men with jeering, and by throwing an ass over the edge of a precipice, as the people of Copto do, because Typhon had red hair and in color resembled an ass. Well, that is again from Plutarch, Moralia. Looking at the art, we see Prometheus definitely has some red hair. We know he was in Egypt, and he's probably going by many different titles, such as Set or Typhon, and some of the other names I previously read. In some of the works of Helena Blavatsky, she does confirm that Prometheus is Set. So does the Church of Satan confirm that Satan is Prometheus on their website, or at least they compare him to Prometheus. Thus, Prometheus was turned into Satan, and there are several churches today, such as the Church of Satan, Temple of Set, Temple of Ahriman. They refer to him as the goat and the trickster. So his worship continues till today, but on a lesser level. Here are some of the symbols that I believe are associated with Prometheus. Take your time to take a look.